So Nicolas Maduro FA'd and he FO'd. Now, the president of Colombia appears to be FAing. So we're going to get to the video in 30 seconds, but first, a quick message from Birch Gold Group. It's a new year, and that means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Make this the year you finally call Birch Gold Group. Until January 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. You've got to claim eligibility to start the process, so text Larry to 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, and you're eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. But you got to claim eligibility. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. That's Larry. Text it to 989898 for Birch Gold Group. Now, back to the video. We're going to show you what he had to say in response to the U.S. military's phenomenal feat of military brilliance in Caracas, Venezuela over the weekend. And what will happen to the president of Colombia? Well, Donald Trump has an idea. We'll get to the president of Colombia in just a second. But first, he's flying back from Mar-a-Lago. He's been down there for 2 hours. By the way, all this happened while he was on vacation. The Venezuela strike, summit with Benjamin Netanyahu, summit with Volodymyr Zelensky over Russia, Ukraine, all this stuff going on. The great economic news, the GDP breaking records and better than anyone expected, inflation down, all this stuff happening while he's on vacation, chilling out down in Palm Beach, Florida. So now he's done with his 2 weeks vacation. Lord knows what he's going to do back in D.C. He gets onto Air Force One and he says, you know what? We had a pretty good weekend. I think I'll go back and talk to the media. And so here's some questions and answers he had.
What are your thoughts on the entire situation? You said the U.S. would run Venezuela.
We're dealing with the people. We're dealing with the people that just got sworn in. And don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
We're in charge.
Have you spoken with her?
No, I haven't, but other people have.
Do you want to?
Yeah, at the right time I will.
At the right time, I will. All right, so her, by the way, is the vice president, who Nicolas Maduro handpicked, has recently been sworn in as vice president. Now she's been sworn in as president. We're told that she's cooperating with American authorities. But this whole we're in charge thing, and the president, he said, yeah, I'm going to say it. It'll be controversial. Let's just be clear. We're in charge means that nothing goes on there unless we give the green light. Nothing's going to happen unless it's first run by United States authorities. That doesn't mean we're down there and we're like, hiring people to run their various government agencies. It doesn't mean that, Marco Rubio or somebody that Marco Rubio chose is sitting in the presidential palace with his feet up on the desk saying, yeah, let's do that. No, let's do that. What it means is we are now the authority over and above the Venezuelan government, the interim government, until they can have a free and fair election. All right. And that may be controversial. You may not like that. I get it. I do. But let me assuage your concerns about this being nation building. As of now, that's not what this looks like, all right? There are huge differences between Venezuela and Iraq, or Afghanistan for that matter. Let me just lay them out there for you. Don't think of what's going on in Venezuela as nation building. Think of it as nation restoration, nation restoring, all right? Because in Iraq and in Afghanistan, they didn't have any infrastructure. They didn't have any government to speak of, really, not a functioning government. They had no experience with free and fair elections, with a parliamentary system, with representative democracy. We were instilling a constitution and Western democratic ideals onto a culture that abhorred that sort of thing. Right? They were tribal nations. They backed the strong horse at any given time, and that's what they were used to at any given time. Venezuela is very different. We basically helped build the Venezuelan economy right up until they elected a Marxist in Hugo Chavez. America has been involved in that country for quite some time through our oil corporations and through other financial interests. We still have that infrastructure there, and they had a semblance of a government, and they had a semblance of a Western-style democracy and representative democracy already in place. Now it's just a question of restoring what was already there. That's not nation building. That's nation fixing. And despite what people say, we actually do have a pretty good track record at that sort of thing. Don't think about Iraq. Think about Panama and Manuel Noriega. Think about the Philippines with Ferdinand Marcos, right? That's more like what's going on in Venezuela right now, all right? Just, that doesn't mean we should be complacent. It doesn't mean we should sit back and watch, but the bottom line with regard to this being some sort of military occupation quagmire like we saw in Iraq, we deposed that entire government. We destroyed, we got rid of everybody because they had one party, the Ba'ath Party, and they were controlling everything, and we got rid of all of them and tried to build it up from scratch. That's not what's going on in Venezuela. Let me just give you one factoid that you should chew on, and then you can reach your own conclusion about whether the U.S. is in danger of having some sort of long-term military quagmire that will end up with casualties stacking up. And by the way, I hope I'm right about this. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say, what the hell are we doing in Venezuela? Get our troops out of there, okay? But I don't think we're going to have a very significant commitment of U.S. troops in Venezuela. And here's the factoid I want you to chew on. When Nicolas Maduro was apprehended on that military base by our American troops, he was being protected by Cuban soldiers. Not Venezuelan soldiers, Cuban soldiers. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that Nicolas Maduro couldn't trust his own military. It tells you that Nicolas Maduro had already lost the confidence of his military infrastructure. They were not on his side. He probably had to fend off military coups left and right. That's why he had Cubans protecting him. So one should reach a logical conclusion that there are elements within Venezuela's security forces and military forces that were already anti-Maduro and were open to this transaction. And I've got to think, based on some of the things that Senator Cotton said and some of the things that we've seen from Hegseth and from Rubio, that the Americans already had inroads to those people and had already been laying the groundwork for this. So be patient, keep your eyes open, and let's see how this transpires. All right, back to President Trump on Air Force One.
Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, and he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me.
Secretary Rubio mentioned.
You know why? Because they kill a lot of people.
All right, so that's Colombia now on the clock. Colombia's got their own problems. Colombia is also narco-trafficking. Colombia, and when asked, could that be a military strike as well? He said, sounds good to me. So, what does the president of Cuba have to say about that?
A mí no me amenace, aquí lo espero si quiere. No acepto invasiones, no acepto misiles, no acepto asesinatos, acepto inteligencia. Vengan aquí a hablar con inteligencia y lo recibimos y hablamos de tú a tú y con cifras reales, no con mentiras. Deje de engañarse de las mafias políticas colombianas, porque nos condenaron a 700,000 muertos, a ser el país más desigual del mundo.
Let me translate. Come and get me, he said. He said, come and get me. Why is it when I see somebody in Latin America speaking Spanish in front of a camera, I immediately think Senator Chris Van Hollen is going to emerge with a tray full of margaritas? I don't know why. It's just, I have this instinct that that's what's about to happen. So here's the president of Colombia, right after President Trump said, yeah, he's as big a problem as Maduro is right now. And the president of Colombia in Spanish says, come and get me, pal. Come on, big orange man. You want a piece of me? Come and get me. It's interesting. The last person we saw doing exactly that, saying in Spanish to Donald Trump, come and get me. Well, this is how it went.
Venga por mí.
Last night, on the order of the President of the United States,
Aquí lo esperan Miraflores.
and in support of a request from the Department of Justice,
No se tarde en llegar.
the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro.
¡Cobarde!
Nicolas Maduro had his chance until he didn't. He effed around and he found out.
This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history.
Like, I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, you know, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. But don't play games. Don't play games with this president's in office, because it's not going to turn out well.
That awesome video, as you can see, put out by the White House's great digital team. So now we've got another Spanish despot screaming, "Come and get me, come and get me." I wonder if the president of Colombia will soon be starring in a little video montage just like that. We'll see. But Colombia isn't the only thing that President Trump has his eye on here as he tries to clean up shop in our own hemisphere for once. What about Cuba?
Cuba is ready to fall. You know?
Yes.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight? They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down. Cuba is...
Lindsey Graham is like, he has never seen a foreign incursion toppling a foreign government that he hasn't just gotten orgasmic over. That was just weird to watch him so excited about Cuba. That said, if Cuba does fall, I just want to say we're going to put together the Larry Viewer cruise. We're going to the Caribbean. We're going to Havana. We're going to tour a cigar factory. And we're all going to have a beautiful smoke. How great would that be? In a free and prosperous Cuba. Let's go. Who wants to sign up for that cruise? Let me know down in the live chat. All right. Now, lest anyone think that the president is exercising his new Monroe Doctrine, which we're calling the Donroe Doctrine, if his interest in asserting American influence and America's priorities on our neighbors in our hemisphere, if it only is focused on those nations to the south of us where Spanish is the primary language, well, you'd be wrong, because during this press conference, he also put in a bid for his favorite country where they speak a bit of a Scandinavian dialect.
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be for a claim to Greenland? What would the justification?
Oh, I don't want to talk about Greenland now. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it. And they
And they know it. And this is all about leverage. This is how Donald Trump makes deals. And this is all about leverage. And he has more leverage than any single human being on the planet right now. And he's utilizing that leverage for our benefit, for the free people all around the world, and certainly for the United States of America, primarily, of course. This is America First, as you're seeing it exercised right now. And it will maintain as an America First policy right up until the point where it's no longer in our interest. And that's when you have to be careful. And that's when you have to say, okay, this isn't in our interest anymore. Let's get the hell out of here. Right? Okay. But I do love that. I love that move. Greenland, we need Greenland. There's Chinese ships all over the place. There's Russian ships all over the place. Denmark thinks that they're going to protect Greenland, and all they did was give them a dog sled. Greenland is a major necessity for us, and we need them. Then the reporter says, well, what's the justification for Greenland? And Trump's like, I don't want to talk about Greenland. It's just hilarious the way he works these guys. And by the way, now that if we could turn south again and our Spanish-speaking friends south of our border, If you say to any American citizen on the street of our great fruited plain here, celebrating our 250th birthday all year long, if you asked anybody, who's the major problem on this planet right now when it comes to narco-terrorism and drug cartels infiltrating the streets and schools, subdivisions, and rural areas of our United States of America, what's the one country they'll come up with? It's not Venezuela. It's not Colombia. You know what it is. It's Mexico. And Mexico's been playing around. And for everybody who says, this isn't what I voted for, Trump didn't say anything about this, you're either stupid, you're lying to yourself, or you weren't paying attention. But go back and look at all of those rallies. We covered him here. He brought up the drug cartels over and over and over again. He said it was time to get the military engaged in stopping these drug cartels and these narco-terrorists. He said it all the time. And he's been working, he's been allowing Mexico to try to clean up their own act. But let me tell you something. What you saw over the weekend in Venezuela, that had Mexico written all over it. I assure you that in Mexico City, their eyes were as wide as anybody watching what was going on. And Trump addressed it on Air Force One.
Has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it. But unfortunately, the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
I remember one time you actually, speaking of Mexico, I asked you about Claudia Sheinbaum, and you told me at one point you had offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to combat drug trafficking there. Is that something you
I like Claudia. I think she's a terrific person. I would say every single time I talk to her, I offered to send troops.
And she's just not willing?
She's concerned. She's a little afraid. The cartels are running Mexico. Whether you like it or not, it's not nice to say, but the cartels are running Mexico.
Now, that's fascinating. And one wonders what might be going on behind the scenes with regard to Mexico. Because if you didn't catch it all, he revealed that he's had conversations with the president of Mexico. He likes her and respects her, he claims. And he's told her that she has to do something about the cartels. And basically, he just said that she's afraid. And then said, basically, the cartels are running Mexico. That opens the door for the United States potentially to cooperate with the Mexican government and to finally bring order to that dysfunctional country and get those cartels out for good. That would be remarkable. And if your mind is boggled right now, as you sit and you look at all of these things and you say, well, there's that country and there's that country and there's that country, what the hell is going on here? Well, it does bring to mind the Monroe Doctrine. President James Monroe, who basically through Manifest Destiny said, listen, yeah, we're these colonies on the east coast of this continent, but our doctrine is that any area and territory that directly affects our borders and our people, American influence needs to be paramount, and we will utilize our diplomatic efforts and, if necessary, and our economic ability and our trade power, but if necessary, also our military might to ensure that America's interests are protected, not just in our nation, but in this hemisphere, specific to this hemisphere. And the president was asked by reporters what this was all about, and he drew the distinction between what this robust focus is on our hemisphere versus past escapades in Southeast Asia or in the Middle East and other areas of the world where we didn't have a great success rate. Here's the president in a very roundabout way sketching out what people are now referring to as the Monroe Doctrine.
Do you have that clip, Larry?
Sorry about that. Let me start it again.
What is the U.S. nation building now? Is that
This isn't a country that's on the other side of the world. This isn't a country like we have to travel 24 hours in an airplane. This is Venezuela. It's in our area. The Monroe Doctrine.
So is that what you would say, that we're in the business of nation building now?
We're in the business of having countries around us that are viable and successful, and where the oil is allowed to freely come out because that's good. It gets the prices down. That's good for our country. Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, and he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
All right, so you heard him say the Monroe Doctrine. He said, we're not talking about some country on the other side of the planet. These are countries that are in our hemisphere who directly affect us. And yes, we have neglected our hemisphere. And he went on to say that this is ultimately about peace. This is about ensuring that there is peace, not just for our citizens and for this country, but as the leader of the free world, we want to make sure that our allies experience peace. And by the way, let's not forget the people who are living in these countries under these dictators.
It's about peace on earth.
How is it peace on earth?
Peace on earth. We got to have peace. It's our hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine was very important when it was done, and other presidents, a lot of them, they lost sight of it. I didn't lose sight, but it really is, it's peace on earth.
All right. So a lot of people are trying to figure this out. They're trying to read between the lines. They're trying to say, what does this mean? What is our real policy? What countries are going to be, subject to our influence, either economically or through trade policies, or yes, maybe even through military policies? Which countries aren't? What does this mean? And anybody who's telling you all the answers to those questions, they don't really know. They're giving you speculation, and I'll give you speculation too. But my speculation, I think, is informed by doing quite a bit of research, quite a bit of reading, and listening to not just what the president has said for the last 10 years of his public life, government public life, but also those closest to him. During our live stream on Saturday, when we were covering the Mar-a-Lago press conference and this incredible turn of events here that it's really just sort of redrawn the political map going forward. This is going to be a top issue in the 2026 midterm election as well as the 28 presidential campaign. The president does this, and he changes the playing field, right? I pointed out the fact that up on camera there was the president's closest advisors on this issue. You had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane. You had Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. You had the president. You had Secretary of State Marco Rubio. You had CIA Director John Ratcliffe. And who was the last person there on the shot? Do you remember? Was it National Security Advisor? Nope. Was it the Chief of Staff? Nope. It was Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, the Deputy Chief of Staff and advisor to the president, quite possibly the most influential voice in the president's ear on the most important policies that this president has owned the first year of this second term. And when Stephen Miller says something, I pay attention, and I relate it back to exactly what we're all trying to figure out is going on in the Trump White House. So while everyone is out there scratching their heads and wondering, what's going on? What does this mean? Why are we doing this? What's this Monroe Doctrine? What are the rules? Just bear with me for a moment. Because last night at 11:39 p.m., Saturday night. I apologize. It was last night. I apologize. Get my dates mixed up. Today's January 5th. Last night, January 4th, 11:39 p.m., Stephen Miller took to X, and he posted this. And I think this puts all the pieces together for you. Read along with me. Not long after World War II, the West dissolved its empires and colonies and began sending colossal sums of taxpayer-funded aid to these former territories, despite having already made them far wealthier and more successful. The West opened its borders, a kind of reverse colonization, providing welfare and thus remittances, while extending to these newcomers and their families not only the full franchise, but preferential legal and financial treatment over the native citizenry. The neoliberal experiment at its core has been a long self-punishment of the places and peoples that built the modern world. What does that mean? It means that after World War II, instead of having a robust foreign policy that had U.S. involvement and British involvement, you had your British Empire, and then you had your quasi-American empire. We were never empirical, but we had certain countries where we had vested interest in, and we had large military bases, things like places like the Philippines, etc. After World War II, for the most part, with rare exceptions, we basically withdrew. We said, all right, time to come home. Time to bring all of our interests back to the United States. We've won World War II. We've defeated fascism. We'll go ahead and give economic support and money, because that's what we got. We'll give you money to keep your countries thriving. And when things went in the toilet, and when those nations collapsed, instead of going in and trying to fix it and trying to help it and trying to exert our influence, what did we do? We opened up our borders and said, well, let's just let the people come here. And big business in America was fine with that, because big business could then exploit all that cheap labor, right? So we opened up our borders, and it really started in the 60s in a robust way with the Immigration and Naturalization Act in the late 60s. I think it was 69. Then it got even more robust going into the 70s and 80s. And again, everybody's fat and happy and the economy's great. And that's right. But the next thing you know, you look at the American population, you look at the demographic makeup of our country, we're bringing in people who don't share our values. They become a drain on our society. They become a drain on our resources. And, what did Biden do? Biden, it's a perfect example here with Venezuela. Biden continued Trump's policy that Maduro was indicted, right? He got indicted under Trump, but Biden kept that indictment in place, kept the criminal charges in place, kept the policy of sanctioning Venezuelan oil, kept the policy that Maduro was not the legitimate president of that nation. But instead of doing something, instead of sending American aircraft with bombs and rockets to get him and bring him to justice so the people of Venezuela in the country of Venezuela could thrive, what did Biden do? Biden sent passenger jets, empty passenger jets to Venezuela, loaded them up with a bunch of Venezuelans, and then flew them back here and let them loose in America. And gave them refugee status, gave them asylum. With every dysfunctional country and economy around the world, as Stephen Miller points out here, we have decided that instead of being a colonial power and going and exerting our values and our good governance on those countries, instead, we've left them alone. We've left them go corrupt. We let them get dysfunctional, and we just open the borders and say, anyone who doesn't like it there can come here. How's that working out for us? So if you're trying to make sense of the rules and the principles behind what we're now calling the Monroe Doctrine, I think it's insightful to see from Stephen Miller himself exactly what the philosophy is about what America's role in the world might be. Finally, President Trump, as always, should have the last word.
We don't let them take ships anymore. You know why? We use the same exact missile on them that we use on the drug carriers. And it's very effective.
So
you notice there's nobody capturing ships anymore? Because as they head out to go capture the ship, and the ship doesn't want to fire back because it's very flammable stuff in many cases. And the insurance companies don't want, because they build $1 billion ship, and they don't want anybody firing rockets into the ship. But we're hitting them so hard, and it's very similar. Same missile system. It's called deadly accurate. And you notice that ships aren't being taken anymore? The pirates are...
That's right. I hadn't thought about
the
that.
Pirates aren't... Well,
no Somali pirates.
It's actually very easy. They head out, we say, guess what? There's pirates. That's the end of the pirates. The shipping business is coming back because, see, these are little things that we're doing. And I'm doing it not just for American ships. I'm doing it worldwide.
So imagine... suddenly there's no threat from Somali pirates because the pirates are out of business or they're sunk to the bottom of the sea, opening up those shipping lanes. And imagine if the Somali government cannot get propped up by the funds that are coming in through corruption and through basically pirating and renegade warfare. That government falls, and suddenly the next thing you know, you've got a better system in place in Somalia. Then we don't have to bring in the Somalis. Tim Walz could even be back in charge of Minnesota. No, I've gone too far. That's never going to happen. These are very interesting times and exciting times and optimistically cautious times. as we see the president now finishing up his first year and branching into, well, a robust foreign policy, to say the least. Most of it focused here in our hemisphere, but also focused on relieving the conditions in these foreign countries that have been allowed to become so dysfunctional and so corrupt and so criminal. And ultimately, those people who have fled those countries to live here, the ultimate goal is to not only stop them from coming here, but to return them home where they belong.